Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Capital Raiser Show, Season 5, powered by the Family Office Club. We interview only the best entrepreneurs and investment managers. Today we have Mr. Jack McCauley, co-founder of Oculus, the chief engineer behind Guitar Hero. He holds numerous U.S. patents, professor at UC Berkeley and Asia Math and Science Institute, innovator at Jacobs Institute. This man is always building something new and creating even more projects during his retirement. Mr. Jack McCauley, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Weston. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about my experiences.
Yeah, of course. So let's get into your backstory a little bit. Tell us how you built Oculus and all these different companies.
So I'll start with the start of my career, which was in entertainment. I worked in entertainment, but I also did other stuff too, environmental stuff. I'm interested in it. Not that I put myself in the category of environmentalist. I'm not at all. But I am interested in energy conservation and making things efficient. And so I started out of college. Before I was out of college, I worked at Atari and other companies like little, video game companies, stuff like that as a programmer. And I I was at the working for the Department of Defense as a programmer. So I had some programming background, and when I was in school, I took electrical engineering, computer science at UC Berkeley, and I could do both hardware and software. I could do both of them. Not so great in the mechanical stuff until later on, but I got okay at that. And so I went to work at Cyclotomics, which was Kodak Research. I started working there in the mid to late 80s, and I worked on Terminator 2, which is a science fiction movie, and I worked with Edward Scissorhands and Dick Tracy, those three feature films. And what I was doing there was the digital sound system for them, and working at Kodak Research. So the guy that I worked for, Elwin Berlekamp, was also a professor at Berkeley, and a computer science professor, and a PhD guy, scientist. He's also a famous mathematician, pretty amazing guy. So he hired me. I stayed in touch with the guy for 30 plus years. He passed away in 2019. I stayed in touch with him because it's of high value to me to develop relationships with people, especially in my career. So to your question of Guitar Hero, the way I got that job is through people I worked with. I didn't have a resume. I didn't have a cover letter. I could fill out an employment application, but I basically got hired based on people that knew me. After Terminator 2 and so forth, here's the truth on that. I was working there, and that's a James Cameron film. I didn't go on set. I was one of those guys that's in a room, with a computer type thing. So working with this guy, and he's a former video game engineer, and he was now writing software for studios there in Hollywood. And I go, hey, how much do video game engineers get paid? And he told me it was like twice as much, and that was enough for me to decide to start working in video game stuff exclusively. So I got the job at Guitar Hero because I have a long history, with one particular guy. I started working with him in 1999, excuse me, developing USB devices and so forth. And then he worked at a division of Take-Two, which is the Grand Theft Auto company, GTA. He worked at a division of Take-Two, and he calls me and he goes, this is in 2005. He goes, hey, this guy named Kelly wants to meet you. And this is at CES, which is Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. And so I go, all right. And I met Kelly. They showed me the Guitar Hero prototype, which was based on plastic guitars from another video game. We had a predecessor game from another studio, another publisher, rather, and that was Guitar Freaks. It was Japanese, but it was J-pop, and it just people didn't get it, especially the West. It's just different. So the fact of the matter is there was already a guitar game, and it was in a cabinet. Also, it was available in arcades. The music didn't work, and so what they did was they paired the Guitar Freaks guitar with songs from a cover band, and the cover band was actually people that actually worked at the studio, Red Octane. One of the guys there was, really good musician. We couldn't get the master tracks from bands because they didn't get it. I kind of didn't get it either. I didn't know how well it would do. I'm not a rhythm game guy. And like Dance Dance Revolution, that came out in '99, did really well. But it's just not my thing, rhythm games. It's like dancing and stuff. I don't care about it. So, but he goes, go talk to this guy, right? So I go talk to him, and there's two guys in there, two brothers, Taiwanese Americans. It's actually American guys, but Taiwan, the family is. And I said, what are the odds of this thing succeeding? As in my head, I'm going, and don't think it's high because of the high cost of plastic guitars and so forth. So we tried to sell the concept to a couple of companies. Electronic Arts turned us down, and the only company that took us on was Activision and bought the company for 120 million. It was actually the first franchise to hit 2 billion in revenue, and that this is unheard of back then, right? We sold 64 million units, and it was a lot of work. My job there consisted of doing the architecture. It's too big for one guy to do everything. Right? So I'm not doing the game. We had contractors do the game, and Activision Studios, Neversoft did game, a lot of the development. But my job there was architecting this stuff, working with the console vendors like Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo to make sure we're, all in sync, specifying the test equipment, specifying some of the production stuff, but basically the overall architecture of the hardware end of it. Didn't really work on the game itself. I don't program games. I work on hardware, software, hardware stuff, drivers, and so on. So, it just took off. It was everywhere. It was on television. There was being mocked and made fun of on late night TV, and it just I didn't expect that to happen, but it did, and I'm thankful that I was able to participate in it. And again, it was based on my relationships with people, and the fact they knew I could do the work. I'm confident, and mostly I'm fast. I'm really, really quick at getting stuff done. In this business, you have to be. Your stuff has to be finished before Black Friday, which is the day that stuff goes on sale for Christmas, right? So all the games have to be ready to go. So you're in this cycle, your annual cycle of working really, really hard, like 9 months out of the year, 10 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And take it.
Yeah. In one of your previous podcasts, you mentioned that you had a team that you had to convince to work 14 hours a day for 8 months, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the products, because you've had multiple successful products that you've built. How do you spot opportunities in products? Because people that listen to this podcast, they might be in different industries than video games.
Yeah.
How do you spot the right product to build?
Let me talk about Oculus, because that's the follow-up story. Because I got the job at Guitar Hero, the CEO of Oculus went and sought through his connections at Activision a hardware engineer to do the work, and they came and talked to me. I was like the third person they spoke to at the company. It was Palmer Luckey and Brendan Uribe, myself, and another guy. And the other guys had jobs, so they hadn't joined yet. But to your question, how I spotted Oculus properly. I said to myself, and I said publicly in 2019, it'll never take off. And the reason is it makes people sick. It makes people dizzy. And Nintendo Switch has sold 174 million units. That's phenomenally good. And they're coming out with a new Nintendo Switch 2, that has a bigger screen and more power. It's loosely based on a cell phone chip, a Qualcomm chip. So they're coming out with a new one. It's just rocketed. It had it all. It had, you don't have to sit at a console. You could sit on the couch. You could take it with you. It's portable. I mean, it was just very well thought out. 174 million units. Oculus, in 12 years, we started the company in 2012. We were in production in 2013 with DK1, first developer kit. Has sold 20 million in 12 years, and Nintendo has sold since 2017, 7 years, 174 million. That's a success. Unfortunately, Oculus has not. The sales haven't been there. And primary reason is vestibular illness and dizziness. Others is that, and this is what I say is, I've said this publicly also, that people don't play video games for rich graphics. It's part of it, but it's not all that important. They play for strategy and goals. The game has to have goals. A goal, like let's capture the blow up a tank or whatever, or win the Formula One race. That's the goal with your team. And that's the attractor for people. It's not fancy graphics. And I'll give you another example. There's a game called Roblox. It's a kid's game. It doesn't have fancy graphics. It has huge numbers of users. It's a smash success. And so that exemplary, the example I just gave you is what I know about video games. So to answer your question, I can spot ones that aren't going to make it most of the time. I can spot it because I've been in that business forever. I can miss stuff though. Sometimes I've missed Guitar Hero. I didn't really know. And to your other point about my success is due to being hired by the right people and my competence and my ability to get things done very quickly. I'm fast in most cases. And incidentally, if I build something that I think I'm going to put in the market, and I don't think it's going to make it, I stop working on it. I don't put any more energy into it, and it gets abandoned, sitting in a corner somewhere. And I've got tons of stuff like that I didn't finish because I could see that it wasn't going to go anywhere. I like to see my stuff at Best Buy and Costco. I like to see stuff that I built there. And if I'm going to build something and it's not going to be in a place like that, I just don't, not interested in doing it. I like to see the result of my work. So,
But what do you think are the commonalities? Yeah, go ahead.
In regards to Oculus, they're still steaming along. They've spent a tremendous amount of money. A startup hardware company would never survive. Oculus would not have survived at all if we had not been bought by Facebook. It would have gone out of business for sure. I've seen it. And high cost of goods. The content portion wasn't resolved like the games. Where are the games? And the metaverse thing, the Horizon Worlds that rolled out of Facebook was kind of strange. Should have hired a studio. Bought a studio. I could buy 10 studios. I just turn those guys loose. The young guys writing that stuff, they love doing it. So just turn them loose and have them make content. It would have stood a better chance. But they try to do this internally somehow, and it just didn't work very well. There's like a couple games that are okay, like a Beat Saber. It's okay. It's an exercise game kind of thing. That's okay. The rest of it's not too great. So I can spot that. I missed the Guitar Hero one. I didn't. Okay, I'll tell you. When I was told at Fry's, go to Fry's, they set up a Guitar Hero demo console. It's a PlayStation 2 dev console. It's a big box. It's for doing development on, and a couple guitars. And then people were lined up to play it. They loved it. So there you go. I owned two camera companies that went belly up. One while I was starting up at Oculus, I had a GoPro accessory company that I was trying to build. Excuse me. So yeah, I can kind of spot it. I wouldn't say it was so easy on early in my career, but I can kind of tell. You can take a look at the team of people that are there working on it, and if the team is looking good and they know what they're doing, you stand a better chance. But hardware is very expensive and difficult, and you can't have stuff failing in the field and returns. It's just not acceptable. At Guitar Hero, we had 0 returns. 0. I mean, we nailed it. Oculus, without going into the numbers, I've had a large number of returns with the Quest. I'm not sure why. I think content probably is the issue. I think it's pretty good hardware. Their stuff is nice. But there's just not enough content for it. So
Hmm. Do you think spotting a successful product comes naturally to you, or are there common traits that they share?
uh, it was learned, uh, and it was learned. I look at the team. I look at who's had an exit. Like if the boss at Oculus had a prior exit, a successful one. He had a company called Scaleform, a video game company, was sold to Autodesk. Now I look at that and I go, okay, he knows what he's doing. And we got some of the Scaleform people working there. One of the software engineers, a couple of the software engineers, and some management. So at Oculus, I said that that's good. He knows how to sell a company. I knew that if we were to try to like bootstrap the company and write content for it, it would never work. No, it's just too expensive. The costs of producing the hardware. When we went to the contract manufacturing part of Oculus, I had to call my friend. We pitched the manufacturing to Foxconn. Nope, not interested. And so we had to find out somebody who's going to produce it. And I took it to a friend of mine who's in China, and she said, "Yeah, I'll do it. You have to pay me up front." So we had to go crack the bank accounts open and pay her up front. She didn't want to take the risk. She knew it was risky. She wasn't impressed with it at all. She's smart. She knows. She was, "Why are you working with? What are you doing there? Why are you working with these guys?" So, yeah, I like them. I like Brendan and guys are, Mike Antonoff. I like him. I said, I like the guys, and I just like working on this stuff. It's fun. But she knew though, it didn't have legs. She knew it immediately, and she's been doing it for 35 years or something like that. So she knows what she's doing. Very impressive person. She did much of the Guitar Hero stuff too. Built that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Excuse me.
So talk about the business principles. So you, with Oculus and Guitar Hero, were brought
Yeah.
on as the chief engineer. So you actually built the product, and you definitely
Yeah.
learned some business principles along the way. So
Yeah.
talk about what you learned from a business standpoint starting these
Yeah.
companies.
Well, I've been financially successful. And is that because of my powerful business acumen? I don't think so. I've done some things right. In Guitar Hero, I sold integrated circuits to in the guitar. That's how I made my living. I had pre-programmed PlayStation 2 chips that went into some of the guitars. And that's how I got my revenue. My salary was low, not very good, but I had some stock options and so forth. So um, you're asking me about my business side. That was what I did. I sold chips. I sold them to other people, to Konami and some other folks, video game chips, particularly with light gun stuff early on, early 2000s, light gun games. So, and also steering wheels and other stuff like that. So I already had all the IP. I had patents on it. So, they kind of implied license the patents from me. So that's the business part of Guitar Hero. On Oculus, they have friends and family invested. I invested on behalf of my family and my friends. So Oculus, friends and family worked out well for these folks who did that. I also had a large number of options. And when we sold the company, they were converted with a multiplier to Facebook options. So I was doing pretty well there. So as far as am I a business guy? I'm an engineer. I wouldn't say that like my business skills are the best, but they're pretty good. I'm more instinctual in regards to startup companies and so forth, of choosing the right people to work with. And this is the key. If you have an exit, you stand a pretty good chance. You got to know when to give up. Like if it's not going anywhere, shelve it, get rid of it, and go on to the next thing. That's what I did. I just go to work somewhere with someone, and the product's not going anywhere. You got to know when to hang it up. So I knew that when to stop, go on to the next thing. So I have a variety of things. I had two successful exits, um, very successful. And so those were the product of my trying stuff and then quitting if I didn't think it was going anywhere. I'm not going to stay at a company and watch it collapse or watch the product not work out. I just won't stick around. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
how I
what do you
kind of
look
roll.
for in partners? Because yeah, you were brought on to actually build the product. What do
Yeah,
you
I'm
look
an
for in
engineer.
partners that build the business part of it?
I'm sorry, the business part. Well, in the
Yes.
case of Oculus, the ability of um, Brendan to construct. So Oculus was on Silicon Valley show. It was on TV before it was even a product because of the buzz that my boss built around it. He constructed the Oculus story. It's a story. It's about an 8-year-old kid in his garage. It's a great story, but it's just a story. It didn't really roll out that way. In reality, it was different. But he knew that that was an intriguing story and was able to produce his story and pitch it to various people and get them intrigued into the whole Oculus thing. For Guitar Hero, the two guys that were running the company that they purchased, Red Octane was purchased by Activision. This is a studio. We got bought. So Red Octane's, uh, uh, my feeling I had for it, I just liked the guys, the two brothers. As a matter of fact, one of them I didn't get along with so well when I was working with him. But later on, after we're not working together, he's like a friend almost, and gets me a job as gets me a position as a trustee at the university. That's how it rolled out for me. And I know his wife Lillian, and they're great people. It's really just super nice. Working with people sometimes is kind of tough, especially if the stress is a lot of stress. So I try not to react, but sometimes I can't help it. So on your question of work ethic has to be strong. I get up at 3. I start my day at 3 o'clock in the morning, and, and it
What time do
ends
you go
at
to bed?
about 6 or 7.
6 or 7.
Yeah,
Is that
and
just for
no,
no distractions?
yeah, I'm not bothered
That's
by
awesome.
anything. I'm not have to worry about the guy mowing the lawn out here getting enough gas. I don't have to worry about that.
Mm.
It all goes away, and I can focus. I read. Prolific reader in the mornings too. I read. I have Amazon books, and I have other stuff on my phone, and also hardcover books that I read. I like to read
Mm.
uh, history and also science stuff. Whatever. Stay tuned up, mentally tuned
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, and you were working. I mean, now you're waking up at 3 a.m. You're retired and you're still building things. So
Yeah.
talk about when you were actually building the company. You had your employees working 14 hours a day. You were as
Yeah.
well for 8 months straight before Black Friday. How did
Yeah.
you motivate the team to do that?
Oh, it's not hard. That stuff's fun to work on. It's fun. I mean, you're making art, and you're going to make something that millions and millions and millions of people enjoy. And so that's your motivator. For me, that's the motivator. I think I could speak well for the rest of it. A studio is not set up like you go into, let's say you go into Electronic Arts. Right? I like Electronic Arts. I worked there too. I worked at EA in Burnaby. Um, and you see the structure. There's HR, there's the boss, there's layers of management, right? The studio doesn't have that. And it works really, really well if it doesn't have that. If you don't have layers of management, you turn people loose, talented people, young talented people, and they go at it. And it just gets done. And the guys and gals, people working there, love it. That's why they're there. They're just for the art component, and that's what drives me
Hmm.
in a funny kind of way. I don't really do that anymore, but that's what drove me to see this stuff in people. Go to Best Buy and you see it on the shelf. Yep, that's pretty cool.
It's a good feeling.
So
So where do
yeah,
you where do you find
mhm.
these talented people, and then how do you build an opportunity
Mm.
that attracts them?
The world of video games is not very big. I know a lot of people. I worked there for almost 40 years, so I know just about everybody. Um, and you know who to call. I get called. This is how I got the job at Oculus, Guitar Hero, Take Two, all those companies that Activision, Electronic Arts, because I know people and they knew who to come talk to. So that's how it rolled out. Now, in the beginning, it didn't really go on. I was kind of, a beginner kind of thing, quick learner, but later on, it didn't really go like that. It was like just know people. You get jobs by knowing people. That's how you get jobs, and you can apply. Um, but if someone knows you, they recommend you. Oh, you should hire that guy. He's really good, or she's really good. Whatever. Easy to get along with, and most of the time, easy to get along with, and can get the work done, and is not a 9 to 5er. They're a 9 to midnighter. People like that. So I just got the word of mouth. Quite frankly, that's how I get my foot in the door. Um, both situations, Oculus and Guitar Hero, were based on people I knew who knew me and recommended me. When the Oculus guys showed up, I had a research facility. I call it a studio. It was just an R&D thing where I was working on stuff and doing research. They showed up there, and the guy shows up at the door, the boss, and he's got that black thing in his hand, the snorkel mask, and I go, oh no, what now? So they brought it in. It was pretty cool, but I was never really intrigued by the virtual reality that much. I mean, I think it has utility, creative utility, when you're doing architecture or building furniture, and you want to place furniture as a video game asset in a building and look at it with shading. That's perfect for that. But that's not what runs people to play video games. It's the strategy component and the goal setting and the social. Those are the key components. That Roblox has at least one of those very well nailed. So my point is, I don't know what my point is exactly, but I'm just saying I got my job through people I knew, and and got hired usually pretty readily.
Yeah, and how did you build that reputation? Because you worked in companies before you
Yeah.
started on an early stage team like Oculus, Guitar Hero,
All right.
and how did you build
Yeah.
your reputation?
So okay, so I'll give you an example. The USB specification, right? I got a job working at Logitech, um, and I was given the opportunity to work on USB spec. So Ken Ray and myself, Ken Ray works at Microsoft, wrote most of the hidden portion of the spec, human input device portion of the spec. And so now I have that on my resume. Well, he wrote the USB spec. I could go and say, hey, well, I worked on the USB spec and this is my contribution to someone. And then they're intrigued. Oh, really? What did you do on that? Or you get recommended by Ken Ray or someone like, I don't say Ken recommended me, but you get recommended by someone. Oh, go talk to him. You should talk to that guy. Do you know someone that can write okay and can do the technical part of a spec? Okay, oh yeah, talk to him. That's one example. The other example that I gave you earlier, which is working on the codec research and making the right connections and staying in touch with Ellen Burleycamp, professor, Berkeley guy, and a genius guy. Staying in touch with him, call him, call him once every 2 weeks or whatever. Just call the guy. And so that's what I do. I just call people and talk. Not so much anymore. I'm not working anymore, but that's what I would do. Zoom is a great tool, for staying in touch with people too. You get to see them. So what I used to do is like call them and say, "Hey, I'll buy you lunch." How can you turn that down? Get a free lunch, and then you can sit down and chat with them. And, at the end of the lunch, you say, "Well, stay in touch," and they do. Usually do. And so that's the other part is I have highly polished, highly skilled at what I do. I have a very solid education from a first-rate university, top 5 universities in the world. Fortunately, for my fortune to get in there and do science stuff, and staying current while I was working, and I can still do the math, calculus, and the math that I learned 40 years ago. I can still do it. Why? I don't know exactly, but I think because I just stay up on it. I run it through my head,
Mm.
like thinking it's just something to think about. I'm bored or whatever, and I just need to think about it. So
Yeah. Yeah, and if you were to start over today, I mean, how would you spot an opportunity in, because you're specialized in video games, and there's a lot of
yeah.
different industries out there. How would you spot opportunities to be a part of?
I got better at it. The more experience I got better at it. And how do I spot it? I spot it by looking at who's involved, their background. Uh, so Oculus, none of the guys had any experience producing any hardware at all. Zero. None of them. 100 people. I did though. And primary task was that. Uh, but I can spot their other skills they have. The ability of the boss to sell the company. I was very confident he could. That it would be a quick
Mm.
exit. And
How did you
so,
see that in him?
because he had done it before, and he's a brilliant sales guy. He's really really good. He's a software engineer, but that's not what he does. He doesn't write software. He gets people to do things for him who normally wouldn't want to help him, and he can get him to do it. He can read your face while you're talking to him and change his pitch. He's that good at it. He's amazing, and smart guy too, very smart. Um, and I saw that, and I said, "Well, okay, I can see what this guy can do, and he could do it, and he did it." The two Taiwanese brothers, a Guitar Hero, not so sure about them, but I was confident that Kelly Sumner, the former CEO of Take-Two, Grand Theft Auto creator, could sell the company, and he did. He flipped it. So that's that's what I looked at. It's like these two guys, some of the guys, maybe not, but these two guys are pretty good, and I like the other guys too. So if I like
Hmm.
the people, it's easier for me. If I don't like someone, I don't want to work there. I just don't want to deal with it. Like the guy's getting on my nerve, annoying me. Or her, she's annoying me.
Yeah, did
Um,
you have any issues with partners, maybe splitting up equity or making decisions, things like that?
no, I normally trusted people to do me right. Um, and so I'll give you an example. I'm in China. This is in March of 2014, right after 2 years after we launched the company. Brendan calls me on the phone. He goes, are you sitting down?" And I said, "I'm asleep." And he goes, I got good news for you. Something like this. You have a stack of dollar bills to the moon. That's what he said. Something like that. I'm not going to tell you the amount, but it was pretty, pretty good. Uh, so his ability to communicate with people and work with people was what I like the best from him. And I worked really really hard there. I'm the 3 a.m. guy. Talking in China on the phone. So it was hard work. I had a really good team in China. I hired a person that I didn't know her how she would work out. She turned out to be amazingly good. I hired her off Craigslist. I hired her to clean the restaurants, and I just was completely overwhelmed. I taught her to do my job, basically. My job at the end was managing people. I kind of had her do all that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, very fortunate. She's done pretty well for herself too. What a hit. She swung and hit the ball on that one. So
That's awesome. Did you know he was selling the company?
yeah, I know. I wasn't involved in those negotiations. I wouldn't want to be anyways. They wouldn't want me in the room with that. I mean, uh, I was aware of it. I was especially aware of the Facebook deal, um, and I was aware of them courting important venture capital people at Andreessen Horowitz to do an introduction to Mark Zuckerberg, so that when they could tell them how his VR headset's going to change the world. Right? There's the sales job there, and
Yeah.
he did it. And it's 3.2 billion. That's not a lot of money to Facebook. I mean, it is and it isn't. They've lost that in one quarter on Quest. They lost losing money like crazy on it. So eventually they're going to have to do something about that. You can't run a business and have a section of the business lose money like that. The board of directors see that and they don't like it. So
Wow.
yeah, it was a wild ride, and it's the people I get in hooked up with. And I look I look at that, their history and so forth.
Hmm.
If they're young, sometimes young people. I mean, I see this. Like I find it shocking. Some of them are so good, and like that guy was much better than me when I was that age. I see these. As an example, a guy that owns a cleaning business. He's 20, and I'm going 20. He's got a really nice truck and employees and everything. 20 years old. What was I doing when I was 20? I don't know, drinking beer or something, partying, whatever. No, I wasn't doing that, but I'm just saying, I like that. And those video game guys, the young guys that are working at the studios, awesome. They're really good. I don't fit into
Hmm.
to a corporation. It's really tough for me to fit in a place where there's HR and layers of management. It just doesn't work for me. I find it
Yeah.
not productive. Um, so
Just like building things. So
yeah,
yeah, talk
yeah,
about what you're doing in retirement. You're building.
yeah,
You're in the electric car space now, and you're doing other
yeah,
projects. So talk about
yeah.
what you're doing now.
Well, not exactly at this moment, but in prior 2019 on, we were working in EV stuff, electric vehicle stuff. We built an ATV that has a hybrid engine, has a gasoline engine on it, and I haven't worked on it lately. We built an electric go-kart that just about killed someone that works here. Um, I built crowd control devices, cybersecurity stuff. We did research on climate change, did research on inflation to find out what the real inflation numbers is. It's shocking. Um, we did research, on inflation, the effect of inflation on wages. It's pretty dramatic. When you are in the last 3.5 years, we've experienced a 17% annualized inflation rate. That's unheard of in the history of the United States. It's really bad. And the impact it has on people, it's bad stuff. I went to the hardware store and talking to the clerk behind the counter. She's an older gal like me. And I was like, hey, and she goes, yeah, I'm really struggling right now. I barely can scrape by. And I'm going, I didn't hear that 4 or 5 years ago. Now I'm hearing that.
Mm.
And so this is the stuff I did on inflation, the consumer price index, how the computations are done. Very strange. It's not statistics. I don't know what it is. So climate change stuff. We compiled the climate data for selected places in the U.S. Not every place. We could only get some of it. So and found out that indeed it's getting warmer, for sure. Why is that? I don't know. I couldn't correlate CO2 to uh, warming. Can't. There's not enough of it. It's 0.0038%. And argon content in the atmosphere is 9%. So that should tell you gas concentrations. There's just not enough of it there. It's also getting more humid here in the United States. Not everywhere. Around here, no. The temperature pretty flat for since 1903. It hasn't changed much here. But other parts of the U.S. it has. It's gone up. Los Angeles Basin has gone up. Um, Michigan gone up. Florida gone up. Texas gone up. Other places not so much. And it has to do with weather patterns, perhaps. Uh, and then yeah, we built cars here. I've got 3 cars that we built here, and a fourth which I sold last year. And then I built other stuff, transportation. I like cars, so I'm a car guy. Transportation things like that I built.
Yeah, for sure. Are you still investing in different projects?
Yeah, I invested my time in a appliance we're building here right now. And what it does is deliver pure water, distilled water that's pure. It doesn't have any bacteria or contaminants, just H2O molecules, right? I'm working on that. What's What's the market for it? I have no idea. It's not my company. I'm just helping out. Somebody asked me to help them, and I enjoy working on this stuff. It's fun. This is a fun project for me. And after that, I finished that. I think I'm going to take a break, do something else. I bought a winery. Uh, this was 4 years ago. It was one of the worst purchases I've ever made. The wine business is just a cash burner. Is basically what it is. How? I met the founders of Barefoot Winery. I didn't meet them. They were at a conference and I saw them over there and I listened to them talk. They took it from 1968 to a huge deal. Barefoot's a giant producer of wine. And I could never do that. I couldn't, I don't have the wherewithal. I just don't know how to do it. So I got rid of that. And I teach locally, not right now, but I do usually in the fall. So that's your question. That's what I'm doing right now.
Hmm. For sure. Do you invest in real estate at all? I mean, this
Yeah.
show, I've interviewed a lot of real estate operators in the past.
Mm.
Actually, this Saturday, I'm interviewing the co-founder of a $28 billion real estate fund. So have
Wow.
you invested in any real estate?
Yeah, I bought a high-end luxury home in Las Vegas on Lake Las Vegas that I'm going to sit on. What I did was this. I said, what is the rate of increase for properties in Las Vegas, right? It's actually pretty high. If you bought an asset in 2019, a house, it's worth much more now. And that hasn't occurred everywhere in the United States, but it has in Vegas. So I looked at that. I said, well, if I buy this house here, I can rent it out and sit on it for 5 years or not rent it out. Either way, I'm going to make money. And as a pool of things, I lost money on the winery thing. I sold that at a little bit of a loss. I've always done well in real estate. Like I sold my commercial building. I tripled my money, quadrupled my money. Of course, I bought quite a long time ago. I sold my house in around here. I bought it in 2017. I almost doubled my money on it.
Mm.
So as a pool of things, real estate's really pretty good. For me, it has been, but I have had some bummers. But overall, I've done pretty well with it. And this house here, I purchased this earlier this year. It's like a country estates type thing here with no neighbors. Got a gun range out here. You can shoot
It's
on the
awesome.
property. And yeah, I like it. And it's very quiet and peaceful here. Yeah, no neighbors. Just I said that already.
Yeah, so you have a couple of luxury houses and the commercial building that you sold.
Mhm.
Do you have any rental properties?
Uh, well, the luxury house is a rental property. This place here has two homes on the lot, and I intend to rent one of them out. But I had a home in Mexico. I sold it in June. I made one third more than I paid for it in 2 years. Really, it's a beautiful house, and with a pool on the top, on the roof, and all that edgeless pool and all that stuff. Security. So, but I never really had renters. I had one renter. That's not true. I had a renter in 2017 for about a year and a half, something like that. But generally, she paid her rent, so it worked out okay.
Just like to keep it quiet. Yeah, so talk about the philanthropy you're doing. You're working at UC
Yeah,
Berkeley and all these different
yeah,
helping out with different projects. So talk about how
sure.
you are serving the community.
So I'm the innovator at residence at UC Berkeley. Jacobs Institute is a makerspace that I built with Paul Jacobs in 2015, 2016 was finished. It's a brand new building on campus, and my office is there. So the makerspace allows students to come build stuff and learn how to use their hands. We keep running into this issue in engineering where the young people coming into engineering don't know how to use tools or anything like that. I just don't get it how they would get where they are without being able to do that. This space teaches you how to use hand tools, screwdrivers and pliers and hammers and then 3D printers and robots and all that stuff. So um, on the philanthropy, that's all philanthropy. I donated the money to Berkeley to do this, to build a place. And I have a foundation, and I donated wine through the foundation. I produced the wine and donated it. It's a 501c. So if you had an event you got free wine for your event as long as it was to raise money for a charity or a university or whatever. I never gave it away to a restaurant. I just handed out to people who are using it to attract donors, things like that.
Hmm. Okay, what's your best piece of advice for entrepreneurs that are just starting out?
Um, Here's what I say to people who are young and and are getting started in their career, particularly in tech. Don't job hop. It takes 5 years to learn a job. When I look at resumes and I see people here for 2 years there, 1 year, 6 months there, no, I'm not hire that guy because he's going to come in and split. He'll find something that he's not happy about. And so if you look at Apple, for example, right? Apple Computer, it's pretty close to here. It's about 30 minutes from here, headquarters, HQ. If you look at Apple Computer, most of the people there are older and they've been there for 15 or 20 years. That means it's a good place to work. People are pretty happy with what they're doing and their income is probably pretty good too. So, my advice to people who are coming into the workforce is to go work for a good company and stay there for a minimum of 5 years because you're going to really, really learn your job in 5 years. You'll really know how to do things. Um,
Hmm.
and that's the advice I give. Don't hop around too much, and you know don't don't publicly comment on the company you work for on social media and say negative things. That's not very smart. That means you do that to my company. So
Jack's gonna fire you. Yeah. So,
yeah,
what do you look for in the company that you work for? A lot of young people want to learn. They're like
yeah,
learn on the job, get paid to learn.
yeah.
So, is there anything specific that you look for?
In a company that go to work for,
Yes.
uh, if I like the project, I'll do it. If I like what I'm doing, and I think it's interesting. If you ask me to build a phone, I'm not sure I could learn it, but I'm not interested in building an iPhone or a phone, mobile device. I'm not interested in that. If you ask me to build an Internet of Things with a SIM card in it, so I can dial in remotely, text from my phone, and find out what's going on, I am interested in that, and I did that. I built a security system. So I had people trespassing on my property, my winery, and I put motion sensing sensor hardware out there to sense when people are on the property. And then when they came on the property, a lion would roar like really loud, like there's a lion up there.
No way.
And it would notify me via phone with a text message that someone is by sensor 4, which would be somewhere on the property. So yeah, I do stuff like that. I enjoy doing stuff like that.
All
And
right. For
then
those
also,
listening, we're
yeah,
not going to drop the address of Mr. Jack McCauley. Don't
no,
trespass on
that's all
his
right.
property.
No, I was just trying to find out
Yes.
if it was a deer or a person or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any last pieces of advice? We're going to wrap up here in a second.
Yeah. If look at the people you're going to work with, and if you're going to go to a company and try to find out, of course, startup company, everyone just getting started, right? So it's a little bit different. Look at if people seem happy there. You can kind of tell the vibe at a company. People are smiling, walking around, socializing. That's a good vibe. If people are quiet and upset, it's probably not a good place to work,
Mm.
right?
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. This is Mr. Jack McCauley. You can find him on the internet. He's everywhere. So shout out to our sponsors, the Family Office Club, Capitalist Pro, and Invest Next. Jack, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.